Super Bowl 58 just around the corner. I thought it'd be a great time to go back and look at the top 10 greatest Super Bowls of all time. Looking back at the best games, the best plays, the best moments, the best storylines, the things that make the Super Bowl such an iconic game and experience for all us fans. But before we get into the video, I wanted to take a quick second to ask you to please subscribe to the channel, ring the bell for notifications. It really helps us out. If you like the NFL, you're going to love this channel. We're releasing multiple videos a week moving forward, so please help us out, help us grow. Thank you. Now, back to the video. So at number 10 on our list, we have Super Bowl 23, the San Francisco 49ers beating the Cincinnati Bengals 20-16. Now, this Super Bowl is before my time, but when I was doing research for this video, I saw how good a game this was. Oh my God. You had the San Francisco 49ers and the Cincinnati Bengals in a Super Bowl rematch from a few years before, with the San Francisco 49ers and Joe Montana looking to become three-time champions. And in this game, you had the Cincinnati Bengals pinning the 49ers inside their own 10-yard line with 3 minutes left, up by 3 points, and the 49ers drive the field methodically, leading San Francisco and Joe Montana to their third title, making them a dynasty and making the Cincinnati Bengals continue their wait for a Super Bowl championship to this day. Sorry, Bengals fans. I know that a 3-minute game-winning drive might not seem that incredible in today's game, but back in the 80s, this was actually insane, and having a Super Bowl in the pre-2000 era that was even a close game was a rare commodity. So this was an absolutely special Super Bowl. It put the 49ers on the map, made them one of America's teams for the 80s, and that's why this game is at number 10. Moving on to number 9, we have Super Bowl 51. The New England Patriots beat the Atlanta Falcons in overtime, 34-28. Now, a lot of people have this game as their all-time number 1 greatest Super Bowl, but there's a couple reasons why I knock it down a little bit. The first reason being that it kind of seemed like two dominations as opposed to a tightly contested game. The Falcons were absolutely dominant, jumping out to a 28-3 lead, and then the Patriots went and scored 31 unanswered points to win the game 34-28. The other reason I don't really like this game is because I just don't like NFL overtime. The fact that Matt Ryan never got to touch the ball in overtime just seems like an injustice. I know that the Falcons were not able to put up points in that game, but give them a chance, for crying out loud. That's why I knocked this game down to number 9. Still an all-time great game because of the comeback, because of the story, and because it led the Patriots their 5th Super Bowl, which is still insane in that era. Moving on to number 8, we have Super Bowl 34, the St. Louis Rams beating the Tennessee Titans 23-16. This game is almost more famous for the story leading into it. So the year before this happened, Kurt Warner signed with the St. Louis Rams, a former Arena Football League player who was bagging groceries just a couple years before that, and he's now on an NFL roster. Coming into this season, he was left unprotected in the expansion draft and wasn't even drafted. Then the starting quarterback, Trent Green, goes down, and all of a sudden, Kurt Warner is the starter for the Rams team that had ambitions. And what does he do? He goes and scores 500 points in a 16-game regular season, leading the Rams to one of the best records in the league, winning MVP, and eventually making the Super Bowl, where they scored only 23 points. But that didn't matter because the Rams defense showed up in this game. And no point more important than the picture on screen, the last second tackle to run out the rest of the clock, win the Super Bowl on the 1-yard line. As a former defensive player in football, I love big-time defensive stops that make a difference. Usually when games end with defensive stops, it's kind of just the expected outcome as opposed to the shocking outcome. This was a shocking outcome. The defense won it. I love it. It's number 8. Let's move along. At number 7, we have Super Bowl 25, the New York Giants beating the Buffalo Bills 20-19. And all you need to say about this game is wide right. Now, this game might have been lost to history and might not have even made this top 10 if it wasn't for what happened after this game, actually. And that is that the Buffalo Bills made 3 more Super Bowls in a row after this, 4 in a row total, and didn't win a single one. They are the only team to ever make 4 straight Super Bowls, and they didn't even win any of them. It's an absolutely shocking sequence of events. And the fact is, the Buffalo Bills weren't even that close in the other Super Bowls. They got dominated in those games. This was a game they should have won, and as time expired, They went to kick a field goal, down by 1 to win the game, and it sails wide right. They lose 3 more straight, and this team goes down in infamy, which is why this game is at number 7. Moving on to number 6, we have Super Bowl 52 and the Philadelphia Eagles beating the New England Patriots 41-33. This game was incredible, and the story leading up to it was actually almost as incredible. You had Carson Wentz and Tom Brady fighting it out for MVP, leading the Eagles and the Patriots as 2 of the best teams in the NFC and AFC respectively. That was until Carson Wentz goes down with a season-ending injury and steps in Nick Foles, the journeyman backup, to lead this Eagles team that had so much promise, but probably wasn't going to go far. But Nick Foles and the Eagles did not care. They marched all the way to the Super Bowl with an underdog mentality, literally wearing masks of dogs during interviews to show that mentality. But in the Super Bowl, they were going up against the New England Patriots and league MVP winning Tom Brady, who are making their 3rd Super Bowl appearance in 4 years, having won their last 2 appearances. Coming into this game, it seemed the only way the Eagles would have a chance is if they could shut down Tom Brady and the Patriots offense, score a few points here and there, and win a slow, grinded-out game. And how did that go? Tom Brady set a Super Bowl record to this day for passing yards with 505 passing yards. But it didn't matter. The Philadelphia Eagles were dominant. Nick Foles had the best game of his career at the best time, winning the Super Bowl 41-33, and no moment encapsulates that Super Bowl more than the Philly special, Nick Foles catching a touchdown pass on a trick play, juxtaposed by Tom Brady dropping his own 4th down catch, which really was just the difference in that game. At number 5, we're going way back to Super Bowl 13, the Pittsburgh Steelers beating the Dallas Cowboys 35-31. Again, this is way before my time, but from looking into it, from watching some highlights, I understand why this Super Bowl is so highly regarded. The Pittsburgh Steelers and Dallas Cowboys were the 2 most dominant teams of the early Super Bowl era, having won 4 of the previous 7 Super Bowls among the 2 of them, and the winner of this game would go down as the team of the 70s and the first team to win 3 Super Bowls. This game was back and forth the whole time, but eventually Terry Bradshaw and the Pittsburgh Steelers took down Roger Staubach and the Dallas Cowboys behind Terry Bradshaw's 4-touchdown performance, making the Steelers the team of the 70s and the best team of the early Super Bowl era. And it didn't hurt that they won the Super Bowl after this too. Moving on to number 4, and the Pittsburgh Steelers are back at it again, this time in Super Bowl 43, where you have the Pittsburgh Steelers beating the Arizona Cardinals 27-23. And this is one of the few times that I think the script writers might have had the wrong ending. This game would have been incredible had the Cardinals won. It would have let Kurt Warner become the first quarterback ever to win a Super Bowl for 2 different teams, having already become the 2nd quarterback ever to make a Super Bowl for 2 different teams, behind only Charlie Morton, who lost both of his Super Bowl appearances back in the early Super Bowl days. Also, it's kind of a travesty that Larry Fitzgerald with his career never won a Super Bowl, but c'est la vie. The reason the Cardinals weren't able to win this game is because the steel curtain defense of Pittsburgh was dominant. In spite of everything Larry Fitzgerald and Kurt Warner did, they couldn't put up enough points, and this Super Bowl was finished with this Santonio Holmes catch on screen, probably one of the greatest throws and catches in NFL history. I know there's a ton of better catches out there, but those are often on bad throws or just Hail Marys that a guy brings in. This was one of the best intentional throws to where no one else can get it but your guy, and just a full extension from Santonio Holmes to win the Super Bowl. Just absolutely perfect. You can't draw it up better than that, and that's why this goes at number 4 on this list. Moving on to number 3, we're going way back to the New York Jets beating the Baltimore Colts 16-7 in Super Bowl III, the first Super Bowl to ever be called the Super Bowl. Prior to that, it was known as the AFL-NFL World Championship game, which doesn't have as nice a ring to it. This game is the only game on the list to not end in a 1-possession game, and The game wasn't even as close as the score indicates, with the Colts only scoring with about 3 minutes left to get their 7 points. You might ask, why is this game even on the list if it wasn't that close a game? And the reason is because of everything surrounding the game. See, you have to understand, this was a time before the AFL and the NFL had merged. At this point in time, the AFL was less than 10 years old, and the NFL was widely considered the significantly superior league. And given the leagues had only had 2 matchups against each other, Super Bowls 1 and 2, which the Green Bay Packers dominated the Kansas City Chiefs and Oakland Raiders in those games, it did seem like the NFL was a far superior product. This belief that the NFL was a far superior product led the spread to be 18 points in favor of the Baltimore Colts. They were expecting an absolute thrashing of the Jets in this game. And with an 18-point spread, Joe Namath guaranteed victory. And he ended up putting his money where his mouth was, or better said, his defense put their money where Namath's mouth was, and absolutely dominated this game, showing that the AFL had arrived, could compete with the NFL, and helped supplant the merger in people's minds and make the Super Bowl must-watch TV. The reason this is on the list is because this is probably the most important Super Bowl game of all time, so it gets number 3 on this list. Moving on to number 2, we have Super Bowl 49, the New England Patriots beating the Seattle Seahawks 28-24, in a game that is best remembered for the extremely controversial Pete Carroll decision to pass for it on 2nd and goal from the 1-yard line. Now, I actually agree with this Pete Carroll decision, but that's a conversation for a complete other video. But the fact of the matter is, it ended up in an interception. The New England Patriots won this game. And this actually makes us forget about one of the greatest Super Bowl plays ever, the Jermaine Kearse catch, only 2 plays earlier, which, again, is often forgotten because of what happened on that 2nd and goal play. Looking back on this game, the New England Patriots seemed almost inevitable to win this game. But at the time, that was actually very far from the truth. You see, the Patriots hadn't won a Super Bowl in 10 years coming into this game. And the last time they won, Tom Brady wasn't really considered anything other than a good game manager. Yes, now he is the GOAT. But you have to remember, by the time they'd won their 3rd Super Bowl, Tom Brady had never thrown for 4,000 or more passing yards, had never thrown for 30 or more touchdowns, and had never thrown 10 or less interceptions. He was a good, not great quarterback with a phenomenal team around him. Shortly after those 3 Super Bowls in 4 years, though, Tom Brady did become elite, becoming one of the best quarterbacks in the league year in, year out. But in spite of making 2 Super Bowls in that era of Patriots teams, he never won one. In fact, they went so long without winning that Wes Welker never won a Super Bowl in a Patriots jersey, which is one of the most shocking facts I can think of in NFL history. Then you look at the other side of the ball where the Seattle Seahawks are coming off a Super Bowl victory where they beat the Denver Broncos and Peyton Manning's all-world offense 43-8 and kept most of that team together. This almost seemed advantage Seahawks in this game, especially with the Patriots' recent history. But Malcolm Butler got the interception, the Patriots won, and it led them to 4 appearances and 3 Super Bowls in a 5-year span. Tom Brady going on to win another one with the Buccaneers, and this was really the start to his ascension to GOAT status. And at number 1 on this list, you probably know it if you've been following along, it's Super Bowl 42, the New York Giants beating the New England Patriots 17-14. This is one of the greatest games of all time in any sport. You had the 16-0 Patriots who just seemed inevitable. We talked in the last one about the Patriots not having won in 10 years. In this one, it was only about 3 years since they had won, so they were still well in their Super Bowl window. Tom Brady had taken the leap from good to elite, and the Patriots were 16-0, the first ever 16-0 team, and looking to become the 2nd ever undefeated regular season and playoff team in NFL history behind only the 1972 Miami Dolphins, who did it in a 14-game regular season. The New England Patriots had hats and shirts and books all ready to be released the next day saying 19-0. And the only thing standing in their way was the 10-6 New York Giants. And the thing is, the New York Giants at 10-6, they were the first team since the 80s to make the Super Bowl with a 10 or less win regular season. 20 years since a team had done this, and they had to go on the road 3 straight playoff games just to make it to the Super Bowl. This seemed inevitable when the game started, that the Patriots were going to secure history, but clearly nobody told the Giants that. The Giants managed to play a slow, grinded out game and managed to enter the fourth quarter losing only 7-3, which, losing by 4 points, most people would say that's a great position for the Giants to be in, but not being able to score anything against the Patriots team didn't bode well for them. But eventually they did score, took the lead before the Patriots took it back with just over 2 minutes left, leaving Eli Manning down by 4 points to drive the field to try to win this game, needing a touchdown to do so. And on 3rd and 5 from their own side of the field, Manning drops back to pass, and he looks like he was for sure going to be sacked. But he somehow escapes, launches the ball up, and it's caught on the helmet of David Tyree. Now, David Tyree has literally done nothing in his NFL career aside from this catch, but he's still considered one of the best-known names of this era of wide receivers due to this catch alone and how meaningful it was. Eventually, this led to a Plaxico Burress touchdown. The Giants stopped the Patriots from a last-second field goal to tie this game, send it to overtime, and the Giants pulled off the greatest upset in NFL history, which is why this is number 1 on this list. But that's it for the list. It was really hard making this list. Had to leave a lot of great games off it. So let me know in the comments, what would you have put on this list? What would you have taken off? I'd love to know. I'd love to discuss. But with that, guys, that's it for the video. We'll see you all later. Peace.